So it's funny. I saw a tweet today by some guy, anonymous handle and everything. And he posted something and it really caught my interest. I don't normally see people get this kind of, involved in terms of being poignant and coming up with something. And let me just set the stage here. Many of you know I am a huge Notre Dame fan. I am a huge, lifelong Boston Red Sox fan. I'm talking about since the time I was a kid, when I was 6 and 7 years old, growing up in Connecticut. Carl Yastrzemski was my hero. The Red Sox were just it. And what strikes me odd about the Miami Dolphins fan base is the complete, utter emotional attachment to this team. Visceral, just get pissed off if you talk about Tua. I mean, just emotionally locked in, emotional investment. And I thought something today and I went, you know what? Being a Red Sox fan, those you don't know, being a Red Sox fan was very, very tough from the time you're a kid. Red Sox went like 100 years between championships. 100 years before they won. I mean, I think they won it in 1916 or 1918 was the last championship they won. And then about 2016 or 17, I can't remember the year, then they won another World Series. 100 years passed before the Boston Red Sox won a World Series. So most of us who are Boston Red Sox, none of us, we didn't get emotionally charged. We like to go to the games. They're fun. It's entertainment. Win or lose, you have fun up in Boston. Go to Fenway, see the Green Monster, have a good time. Go to dinner afterwards. Go home. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who's playing. It just wasn't any emotional attachment because you got used to it. You got used to the fact of these bums aren't going to win anything this year. And then if they do, oh, great. Everything's fine. I remember I owned a bar back in 1986. And I thought the Red Sox were about to win the World Series. They were up. Game was basically in the bag. I bought everybody in the bar a drink because it was 2 outs and all they had to do was get one more out. Ground ball up the first baseline. This is it. We're going to win the World Series. And Bill Buckner let the ball go right between his legs. New York Mets tied it up and won. Could not believe that happened. And then at that point, it's like, hey, man, we got close. The curse is still on, 100 years. And just like people say there's a curse with Miami with the DeQuesta Indians, the curse of the Bambino was what we had to deal with growing up. When the Red Sox traded Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees, they called it the curse of the Bambino for trading him to your biggest rival. And we traded George Herman Ruth, Babe Ruth, to the New York Yankees. So you just grew up just hoping, and then when it didn't happen, who cares? Just a game. As a Notre Dame fan, all the same thing. The folklore was there, Heisman Trophy winners. I got recruited by Notre Dame. I got to walk out the tunnel. I got to see Touchdown Jesus. I stood on the field. You could actually feel the presence of greatness as you're standing in that stadium. Trust me, I know it sounds weird, but you just feel like, wow, man, I'm in Notre Dame friggin' stadium. I'm standing here and I can just see the banners and you're walking through. It's a phenomenal feeling. Then nothing happens. Nothing happens. They win back in the 80s, back in the Lou Holtz days, and every single fall I wake up and go, well, let's see what we're going to do. And usually by mid-September, we're done. So you don't get too emotional attached. On the other hand, you got Miami Dolphins fans who are just nuts, absolutely nuts about things. And so I saw this tweet today I want to show you, and it made so much sense when I saw it. And it reads, the Dolphins organization has been mediocre for so long that a significant portion of the fan base is experiencing Stockholm syndrome. That's where you fall in love with your captor. It doesn't matter when you're kidnapped. It doesn't matter if your captor treats you well. Comfort isn't the goal. Freedom is. Winning seasons aren't the goal. The Super Bowl is. And I found that to be so true, that people lose sight of winning the Super Bowl. And over the last couple of days, people have made all kinds of excuses. And they're happy with that. Well, we were 11-6 or 7. We did great and 2 or 3 for 4,000 yards. And, we had the number 1 passing rating. It's like they completely forgot the last part of the season and getting beat by the Kansas City Chiefs. It's already gone. And so for the next 8 months or so, I realized what's going to happen. Almost like the 5 stages of denial. You had people completely upset, burning their jerseys and everything else when the Kansas City game was over. And then the machine began. The machine began to basically corral everybody, as many people as it could, back into the fold. Hey guys, it's going to be better next year. Watch what happens next year. And I'm thinking to myself, I remember saying that back in 1968 about the Red Sox. I could see this stuff unfolding. I can see what people are writing. I can see what people are probably being told to write. And it seems like so many people don't have the vision to realize what's going on. What's going on is a psychological term called confirmation bias. Now, I don't mean to get too deep in the weeds here talking about psychology, but you have to recognize what's going to be happening over the next few months. You are going to be told, forget about what happened against the Kansas City Chiefs. It was an anomaly. It was an oasis. It was a smokescreen. It doesn't really matter. Everything is going to be fine. We're going to be a great team. We're going to be a franchise with no substantive foundation whatsoever other than your need to be confirmed, your bias to be confirmed. Let me show you something I downloaded that pretty much tells you what this is. I want you to take a look at this. Confirmation bias is basically the tendency to seek out and prefer information that supports our pre-existing beliefs. On the left-hand side in the green, you see evidence we ignore, and on the right side in purple, you have what our beliefs are, and in that small sliver in the middle is evidence that we believe. That's called confirmation bias. Want me to show you what confirmation bias is without really even trying? Last night, there was a primary caucus, whatever you want to call it, in Iowa, and Trump won. Basically stomped his opponents 52% to 19 or whatever. Immediately upon the polls and the race being called, MSC and NBC went directly into the trashing of people who voted for Trump. Why do you think they did that? Pretty simple. It's called confirmation bias. The audience who's looking at those stations had their confirmation that the Nazis and everything else and the racist and homophobe, xenophobe was confirmed. Bad was confirmed. They fed and they continue to feed what you want to hear if you're not a Trump supporter. If you're not a Trump supporter, they know what you need to hear. Conversely, the other side, if you are a Trump supporter, those guys are bad and they don't know what they're talking about, so listen to us if it's on Fox News or some of the conservative stations. Audiences are basically herded to be told through the auspices of news what you already want to hear. And people don't even realize from a marketing perspective that it's done because it's done so well. It's done with such force and reinforcement that you don't even realize that your confirmations and your biases are being confirmed on a daily, hourly basis. And I'm not being political. I'm just telling you what's happening. And I know just by mentioning Donald Trump's name, there are a good amount of people who just recoil just because of that. If I said right now Man, I can't believe he won. He's a Nazi sympathizer, he's racist, and he's homophobic. There are a certain number of people in here would go, yeah, that's right. That's what he is. If I said that Donald Trump is going to save this country, he's going to get rid of all these illegal aliens and put us back to prosperity, there's a certain amount of people who go, yeah, America, that's right. I'm telling you what you want to hear. And it's a part of what people in the press do because they rely upon your confirmation bias to feed your confirmation bias over and over and over again in order to build an audience. One of the reasons that many people in the Dolphins fan base don't like me is I don't buy into it. I'm just going to tell you what I see. Oh, you're trashing Tua. Really? I just told you he threw 2 interceptions and his arm couldn't get that pass. You could see it. It's not something I'm making up. Barry, don't even talk about it. Don't even talk about it? Why not talk about it? Because it goes directly against your confirmation bias. Mike McDaniel isn't a good coach. He's really blowing things. He couldn't get the communication in. He wasn't calling the right plays. He wasn't winning challenges. All of which are correct. But don't say that because it really upsets me because you're going against what I believe. You're giving me evidence and fact which I don't accept. Bingo. The tendency to seek out and prefer information that supports our pre-existing beliefs. There are channels on YouTube, Miami Dolphins channels, that will tell their audience everything they want to hear. They will never go against the family, as in a Godfather reference there. They will not talk about the family negatively. Why? Because they know their audience doesn't want it. They know that their audience tunes in because they want to be patted on the shoulder. Tell me everything is going to be all right. Tell me Tua is great. Tell me Mike McDaniel's the next coming of Don Shula. That's what I need to hear, and they give it to you. Meanwhile, hopefully, I've found an audience who can discern and understand. I'm not being negative. I'm telling you the truth. And it's funny because when you hear the truth, it can sometimes piss you off. You can't believe people are actually telling you the truth. And it shocks you because you've been told so much over here that confirms your bias that when you hear truth and it's shown to you, it's shocking. I can't believe you're saying this, Barry. Nobody's saying this online. Well, okay, let me show you this video. Let me show you this video of the defensive back from the Kansas City pounding Tyreek into the dirt. He was more physical. He beat him. You didn't see that going around. Why? Because they don't want you to see it because it's not something you want to see. So, Barry, now that we've understood that, understand what's going to happen for the next 8 months. The memory of Kansas City is going to be driven into obscurity. You will not hear much of that being talked about. Everything will be shifting in the next couple weeks to everything's great, we're going to be better, and we're going to win the Super Bowl next year. And some of you may even participate in that. And so what I'm going to be doing on this show is showing you, okay, like last night. What are you going to do about this, and this? What are you going to do about Wilkins? What are you going to do about ABG? What are you going to do about Connor Williams? What are you going to do about Tua? Oh, you're going to give him $45 million? Okay. Not me making it up. I'm actually going to show you the stuff that other people won't show you. Count on it. All right, so let me go into something that happened today that even further identifies confirmation bias. So today, Omar Kelly put out a tweet. I don't have it here. And Omar, wait a minute, maybe I do have it. I can get to it real quick. And this is really, really interesting. Omar Kelly, who's a writer, I guess he used to write for the Sun Sentinel, and now he does his own freelance stuff, and he does a podcast with Alan Poupart, which Alan's a good guy. I like him. But you can always tell when there's something out there that either he's been told to say or wants to say. If you want to listen to today's Joe Rose show, you can find the podcast segment here, and he links the link, and nobody responded. Nobody responded because Joe Rose, we don't care about Joe Rose. Then little bit later, he had to retweet it so that the audience would actually click, And it says, look at the difference. Interesting conversation here on the whole Tua is a one-read quarterback narrative. And basically, he wants people to go listen to the same podcast, but said it a different way. Oh, you're talking about Tua? Let's check that out. So what he ended up doing is having a podcast with Brian Baldinger, former NFL player on NFL Network and NFL analyst. And understand, whenever you do an interview, everybody knows what you're going to say. You know, people just don't show up on an interview. Hey, Omar, how you doing? Okay, let's get started. And hey, listen, what kind of underwear you have on tonight? No, I'm not answering that. You have to tell these guys what you're going to be talking about. So understand, sometimes people basically get away from that and screw up. So I'm going to show you a little confirmation bias, and then I'm going to show you how that bias was basically shortly thereafter completely like, oh my God, let's not go there. So he's going to talk about. I'm going to let you hear it. Let me put this up. He's going to talk about Tua and the fallacy that people have that Tua is a one-read quarterback. Okay, let's listen.
There's also this narrative now that's circulating in South Florida, and it bothers me a little bit because I think Tua has shown that he's not a one-read quarterback all season. I mean, you're a Pro Bowl starter. You were top in efficiency last year.
So right there, he's doing reinforcement to his question. Hey, listen, people are saying this stuff about Tua being a one-read quarterback, and you're an NFL player, and so we want you to refute what other NFL players have said because we want your opinion, and so I can post it on Twitter and talk about your opinion as if it somehow trumps what other people are saying because you're Brian Baldinger. So And when I set this question up, understand that, I'm talking about the popularity contest called the Pro Bowl and all these numbers that Tua put up. So what do you think, Brian?
The leader in yardage in the NFL, you have the number one offense. Is there any merit to the skeptics that are out there saying that Tua is a one-read quarterback?
Now, before he answers, understand he's doing this so that he can post it so that people who are in love with Tua can take what Brian says and go, oh, see, you see what Brian Baldinger said? Brian he's telling you what, listen.
Well, that's not true, though. I mean, it's just not true. So, I mean, it's not the skeptics, they're not watching.
Y'all not watching. So right there, and it's funny to me.
He can read more than one receiver at a time. He goes through progressions. That's his strength.
Yeah.
It's how quickly it goes through progressions and how he gets from 1 to 2 to 3 consistently. So, I mean, it's just people that don't watch the game, that's all.
All right, so what he did right there, technique, Omar throws up the softball and says, are these people nuts or whatever? You're an NFL player. Tua is the number one in the league. All this stuff about one-read quarterback, everybody has been talking about. Set them straight, Baldy. Baldy says, no, that's not true. He goes through his progressions. He goes through his 1, 2, 3, 4 reads. So he's basically telling you at this point, don't believe what you've seen. I am the awesome Baldy, and I'm telling you what you've seen isn't what you actually see. It doesn't happen. Tua goes through all these progressions before he throws the ball. That's what he just said. Okay? And then you got the ad hominem. And ad hominem means if I say something that I can't really defend, what I would rather do is give you an insult for even questioning me. See it all the time on Twitter, sometimes in the comments here. Oh, you're a moron, you're a clown. You want to address what I just said? I don't have to. I've denigrated you to the point of you're insignificant. You just don't know ball. You don't watch anything. You're stupid. I don't need to waste any time. He said what everybody who's in love with Tua wants to hear. Okay. I'll buy into that. I'll believe that, because if you're saying he's an authority, we have to believe it, right? if it comes out of Brian Baldinger's mouth, what Omar is saying, allowing Brian to say that with no pushback, that's an authoritative answer, and what he says is correct. Don't question it, or you don't know ball. Ergo, if you ask him other questions, he must be authoritative as well, right? You can't be authoritative on just Tua if you're a former NFL player and an NFL Network analyst. You must be authoritative on other questions I ask you. Watch this, because it blows up in his face because he's got a partner on there, and obviously this is a bit off script, and Omar tries to reel it back in, and this is just gold because we're supposed to believe what Brian Baldinger said. So the confirmation bias of the first question is completely obliterated here. Ready for this?
But a lot of people here in South Florida are very interested in Jim Harbaugh. Some people saying Mike McDaniel's gotten kind of conservative. Maybe his play calling's weird. Jim Harbaugh, owner Stephen Ross, both Michigan guys. Jim Harbaugh rumored to be testing the waters of the NFL. Where do you think Mr. Khaki Pants ends up next season, or does he stay in Michigan?
So he comes out with a questionnaire, and listen to the next thing that Omar says when he realizes, oh shit, I just let this guy ask a question. I don't know what Baldinger is going to say. I'm going to try and cut this off at the pass. Listen to Omar's immediate response here, just off the cuff.
Well, you better be able to write a big check if you want Jim Harbaugh. I don't know that the Chargers could like that big of a check. He's got a lot of leverage. I mean, I think he's the number one coaching candidate right now in both college, if he wants to stay at Michigan, and he's got a contract on his desk to decide if he wants it. But I think he could be the number one coaching free agent in all of football, college, and the NFL. So whether Michigan can retain him, I'm not sure. But I'm sure that if you're an NFL team, you should interview Jim Harbaugh. He's just that good, and he has proven that he can win at the highest level of the NFL, that he can take a moribund franchise like the 49ers, like they were, and put them in the Super Bowl in a couple of...
All right, so Baldy's just heralding Harbaugh. If you're an NFL team, you got to talk about him. And right now, I know Omar's in the studio, wherever they are, going, oh, shit. Oh, man, how do we get out of this? How do I stop him?
The years.
So would it be crazy for the Dolphins just to have a simple meeting with him?
Can't do that.
Do you hear Omar chime? Hey, you can't do that. What do you mean? Brian Baldinger, who you just said was an authority, just started talking about Jim Harbaugh is the guy every NFL team wants to talk to him. You better talk to Jim Harbaugh. You got the money, talk to Jim Harbaugh. This is me, Brian Baldinger, NFL Network analyst, former NFL player. You just asked me about Tua. You said I was great with the answer there. I'm giving you my answer here. You don't like it? What do you mean you can't do it? Why did you jump in before Brian Baldinger actually answered? And then Brian Baldinger does answer.
Well, I mean, your coach is under contract. I don't know that. I mean, but I don't know if the contract that this stuff is written on is meaningless or meaningful. But I think Stephen Ross will do anything to produce a champion. Anything. So if that means going to meet Jim Harbaugh at the local diner or the Starbucks, then he's going to have that meeting or on one of his yachts or in one of his buildings in the penthouse. I could see that happening.
Do you hear that? Hey, man, Stephen Ross will do anything, reaffirmed it. And I mean anything to win a championship. So if Harbaugh wants to come to Miami, he's definitely going to talk to him, even if he needs to sneak off and meet with him at a diner, on his yacht, in his penthouse, whatever he's going to do, he's going to do it. Okay, thank you. Mike McDaniel, you're on the hot seat, bro. Right now, that's what we have to believe. We have to believe that Tua isn't a one-read quarterback. He goes through his progressions. Brian Baldinger said that to us. Well, he just said that Stephen Ross is absolutely going to must talk to Jim Harbaugh about taking over the coaching reins of the Miami Dolphins, and he's got to meet him anywhere. The yacht, country club, the restaurant, penthouse, wherever it is, you need to go meet with Jim Harbaugh. Big news right there, right? That's what we're supposed to believe. Who knows? But that's what happens when you put all your eggs into someone and you ask them to speak, and then they say something you don't want to hear. And there's nothing, not a single tweet on Omar Kelly's timeline, not one, not even a word about Brian Baldinger just said that Stephen Ross will do anything to win a championship, including getting rid of Mike McDaniel and talking to Jim Harbaugh. I didn't say it. Barry didn't say it. Ain't nobody else you know are going to say it. Brian Baldinger just said it. I just happen to be the one showing it to you. I just happen to be the one who is willing to say, whoa, did this NFL analyst just say that? Did he really just come out and really drop that little nugget in front of everybody? There goes your confirmation bias out the window. You got to understand, when people talk and give their opinion, if you believe one, you got to believe the other. Otherwise, your first segment, when you're talking about Tua and the one read stuff, doesn't hold any water. You brought an authority on your show. You asked him questions, but don't. We can't do that. Wait a minute. I thought he was the man. So anyway, just so you guys know, I don't think Mike McDaniel is in the hot seat yet. He may be in the hot seat next year if they don't win. But I just thought that was simply amazing that he blurted that out when he obviously wasn't supposed to, or Omar's like, no, he can't happen. That can't happen. To me, and any of you, if I was a reporter and Brian Baldinger of the NFL Network said that, wouldn't that be newsworthy? Wouldn't you be putting that on Twitter, writing an article about it, putting up the recording like this? I was done cutting, and I went, whoa, this is a nugget nobody's ever going to hear. You're going to bury this one because it doesn't fit in the confirmation bias. No one's going to want to be talking about Mike McDaniel getting fired, that the contract he's got might not be worth shit, and that they're going to bring in Jim Harbaugh. He was emphatic about it. Every NFL team should be talking to him. Emphatic. Steve Ross, quote, will do anything to win a championship, unquote. Meet him in the diner, meet him in the penthouse, meet him on the yacht. Go meet him. I didn't say that. He said that.